How's it going, LinkedIn family? So continuing in the series about men and depression, first off, let me say I appreciate everyone's support, both publicly and privately, specifically from men and women that have reached out privately to send me a ton of encouragement and very kind words. I really appreciate it. It's a very tough topic to talk about, much less talk about it publicly. But I really hope that it helps people, specifically men, or maybe help people understand men that are going through depression and in some cases don't even know it. I'm also going to include the disclaimer video above about, I'm not a licensed therapist, medical doctor, or any of those things. What I am is, I would say I'm an expert on my journey with depression because I did a lot of work with professionals and I did a lot of self-discovery about myself and how I got here. If you take a look at the cycle that I put together, I tried to put it together in a circle, but it ended up being a triangle, that underneath the ignorance and shame was always fear. Today I want to talk about the ignorance. And the very first time that I can recall really recognizing how ignorant I was, probably fueled by judgment, was in 2006. An extended family member and his wife were going through a divorce, and I'll never forget, they were in their late 40s, been married about 25 years, and I'll never forget the wife saying, I think so-and-so has been depressed his whole life. And at the time, he was doing some things to tear their family apart. It was absolutely tragic. So, any ignorance I had about depression, which is really just not having information and experience, a lack of, information, right, is really what ignorance is. Any ignorance I had about the topic of depression was fueled by external things that were going on and judgments, if I can be candid, about what he was doing. And as I look back on that, it wasn't until 7 to 8 years later that I looked back and I thought, that's me. That really for the better part of all of my life, or most of my life, I've been depressed. Grew up with a tough background, broken home, a lot of trauma, a lot of drama, and depression, or this sense of sadness, just followed me throughout my whole life, and I was ignorant to it. I remember being in high school and friends saying, wow, you're such a melancholy. That was probably the first tag or label that I got, because I could express myself and I could talk about the deep topics and the sad topics and have a, even though I was much younger and more immature then, I had a perspective on it from the deeper side, or the sadder side of things. And so what I want to share about depression and ignorance is, for me, it fueled so much of that cycle, because what we don't know, we don't know. And I stayed in ignorance for a long time about depression. The other side of that I want to mention is I stayed in ignorance about how to treat it. I went through my entire depression, as long as I've been depressed, completely med-free. I want to say that I'm not advocating for that, or not advocating for taking meds. I was ignorant, and to be candid, my kids and people around me during my divorce would have probably benefited from me not being ignorant about medication. But I've never taken any medication for the depression. I always did other things, self-discovery, and got other therapeutic resources for that. What fueled that ignorance as well was the death of a family member from an overdose that was very close to me at one time. And so, the ignorance around depression is so much of the problem individually for ourselves. It's even tougher with our sphere of influence or people that we work with. And so I just want to encourage people that don't know about depression. There's a lot of people going through it. And a lot of times the ignorance around it is fueled by, why can't this person be happy? Right? They just got a raise. They just got married. They just had their third child. Well, that might cause some kind of depression. Sorry about that. I have 4. So, there's all kind of things that happen that we look at and say, wow, Why can't they be happy? What do they have to be depressed about? But that's that is an uninformed approach to understanding why someone may be sad or melancholy or depressed. Hope this has been helpful. On the next video, I'll talk about the fear as it relates to the shame and tie the three together.